Welcome to the nightclub. We're going to do lesson 4-7 today. Yeah! Thank you. All right. This lesson is not quite as hard as yesterday's, I don't think. So when we're done, you tell me and we'll decide together. We're doing radical equations and inequalities today. Yesterday was rational equations, okay? Today is radical equations. So you probably know how to do this. You just don't know you know how to do it. I'm going to tell you the first key. If possible, get your square root by itself. So is it possible to get my square root by itself here?
It is.
Yes. So how would I do that?
-5.
Subtract 5 from both sides. So I'll have x minus 5 equals the square root of x plus 7. Steve, please stop. All right. How do I get rid of the square root now? Square. But if whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Now, at this point, you can do the shortcut, or you can just write x minus 5 times x minus 5 down twice and do it the long way, okay? The shortcut, I'm going to do it the long way, and you'll see why the shortcut works, okay? So the long way, I'm going to get x times x is what? X squared, negative 5x, negative 5x, positive 25, okay? These two, what do you notice about them? They are the same, okay? Exactly the same. How often do you think that happens?
Every single time.
Every single time you're squaring a binomial, that will happen, okay? So here's the shortcut. You square the first one, you square the last one, and then you multiply them together and double it. What's negative 5 times x? Negative 5x, and then times 2 would be negative 10x. The same thing you get if you just add those up. Everybody got me? Okay, so that just saves you a little bit of writing time. All right? Equals, when I square that, what happens? The square root goes away, and I'm left with x plus 7. What kind of equation do I have? Quadratic. That's important to know, because if it's a quadratic, I need it equal to 0. So I'm going to move the x and the 7 over by subtracting. I have x squared minus 11x plus 18. Quadratic formula, complete the square, factor if you can. You can factor, and it's actually a pretty easy one. Not plus, because what's it got to add up to? Negative 11, so it's not positive 9 and positive 2, it's what? Negative 9 and negative 2, and for my final answers, we'll get x equals 9 and x equals 2. Okay? So far it's easier, right? Awesome. Now, you do need to check them. Now, we don't have denominators. You know, yesterday we were plugging them in and making sure we didn't get 0 for the denominator, okay? Yeah. We don't have not denominators, but we do have that radical, okay? So you're checking for two things. And I wish you could just, I messed up earlier, just saying, oh, you just got to make sure this is going to be positive. You actually have to make sure the answer works, okay? Now, if you get a negative in your radical, you can go ahead and stop and say, hey, that one doesn't work, okay? It makes it a little quicker. But if I were to plug in 9, okay, 9 plus 7 is 16, square root of 16 is 4, 4 plus 5 is 9. So I would get 9 equals 9. So 9 works. But if I do 2, 2 plus 7 is 9, square root of 9 is 3, 3 plus 5 is not 2. So the 2 is an extraneous solution. It does not work. So my only answer is 9. Okay?
What is extraneous?
Extraneous is the big long word for extra. Yes.
How do you know that the 2 doesn't work?
Because I plugged it in and it didn't give me something that was true. When I plug in 2 here, 2 plus 7 is, so the square root of 9 plus 5, square root of 9 is 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. Does 8 equal 2? It does not, so that one doesn't work. Okay? Any other questions? Everybody good? All right. Example 3, which is our example 2. We skipped example 1, sorry. Same process. Can we get the radical by itself? We can. Okay. What would I do to get the radical by that itself? Subtract 8. We're going to in just a minute. Okay. I got to get it by itself first, though. So negative 4 equals the cubed root of x plus 2. Okay. Now, when it's a square root, we square it to get rid of the radical. But what do we do when it's a cube root?
Cube it.
Just like Mallory just said, we're going to
Yeah, Mallory.
cube it.
Leslie says
Leslie said that? Leslie and Mallory said cube it. So we're going to cube both sides. That will get rid of my radical. I'll just have x plus 2. Negative 4 to the third. I'm sorry?
Why do you have a 3 on the outside and you have a 3 on the inside?
Because that's how you get rid of the radical. To get rid of a cube root, you cube it. To get rid of the fourth root, you do what? The fourth power. Okay? When you get rid of the fifth root, you do the fifth power. All right? So this, I said that's what, negative 64?
Yes, sir.
All right? And then one more step. Subtract your 2. X equals negative 66.
That don't work. How many can you cube negative?
You absolutely can, because remember, the only reason you can't have squares in a square, negatives in a square root is because you can't multiply something by itself and not get a positive. You can do that if you're multiplying it by itself 3 times. Okay? So negative times a negative would stay negative. And it does give you 4. If you did negative 66 in here, you get the cubed root of negative 64, which is negative 4. And what's negative 4 plus 8? 4. It checked. Okay? These are radical
How do you do a
equations.
cube
Yes.
root
In the calculator, you'll go to your calculator. So if I want to do the cube root, you hit math, and it's the fourth one down. Any other type of root, like fifth root, sixth root, seventh root, you do that one that has the x root, and you'll just plug it in. So if I go down one more, it'll come up x root, and you just plug in what root you want. Okay? But the cubed root is right above it because it's used more often.
Okay.
All right?
How many examples are there?
Example of what?
Examples are there?
4. So, example 4. All right. I'm just go ahead and warn you. This is going to take a second. It's a little complicated because I'm going to ask the same question I've been asking on every one of them. Can I get a square root by itself on this one?
No.
I can't. Right now, the one on the left's by itself. The one on the right is not. So I could move the 5 over, but when I did that, now the one on the left won't be by itself, and the one on the right will be. See what I'm saying? So I'm stuck either way. Okay? So I'm going to actually go ahead and square both sides. Okay? I'm going to square it, even though it's going to be big and ugly. All right? And you'll see why it's a good thing if you can get it by itself. It makes it a lot easier. This one we can't. All right? So the left side's easy. What's that going to be?
X plus 10.
X plus 10. Okay? Equals the right side. You can write it down twice and FOIL, but the shortcut sure does come in handy here. Okay? What's 5 squared? 25. What is negative square root of 3 minus x times negative square root of 3 minus x? It's positive. Square root of 3 minus x times square root of 3 minus x. It's just 3 minus x. Because you're squaring it, basically, right? And when you square a square root, what happens to the square root? It goes away. See how that works? Okay?
It's not.
All right, because I have to fill in the middle. Remember? You leave a little space for the middle part. So, helps here. To get the middle part, I'm going to multiply that times that, which would just be negative 5 square root 3 minus x. And I do what to that? Double it. So it will make negative 10 square root of 3 minus x.
Wait, do that again.
Where do you say that?
I say this times this, which is negative 5 square root of 3 minus x.
Yeah.
And had I written it down twice, how many times would I have gotten that? Twice. Okay, because when you FOIL a binomial, okay, when you square it, you're going to get the middle terms are going to be the same every time. I'm going to get two of them. So negative 5 square root of 3 minus x and negative 5 square root of 3 minus x would make negative 10 square root of 3 minus x. Okay? So now we've gone from having two radicals to now we just have what? One radical. So we're making progress here. Okay? Now can I get that square root by itself? Yes. I'm going to move everything over here that's not with it over. Okay? So I'm going to subtract 25, and I'm going to subtract 3, and I'm going to add x. And over here, I'm going to add my x, subtract 25, and subtract my 3. I'm sorry?
I'm so confused.
Where'd I lose you?
The doing all the subtracting.
I'm just moving everything that does not have, it's not in the square root term. I'm moving it over to the other side. So I'm just doing the opposite of them. Okay? So this is positive 25. I'm subtracting 25 from both sides. It's positive 3. I'm subtracting 3 from both sides. Negative x, I'm adding x to both sides.
Why'd you put two of them in one page?
Because I'm going to add all these up. Okay? This is, okay, I'm kind of going off. I'm sure your algebra teacher told you, because they're trying to make it as simple, okay? I'm trying to make it as few steps as possible, okay? So your algebra teacher would have told you to do what with this and this? Combine like terms. And then what would you have done with it? Then you would have moved it over. Well, I'm just moving it over and adding them all up at one time. Does that make sense? Okay? So rather than having a whole nother step where I just combine 25 and 3 and make 28, I'm just subtracting them individually by themselves rather than adding them up and then subtracting them. Is that making sense? Okay? So x plus x. Don't say x squared. 2x. I got 2x. 10 minus 25 minus 3
Negative 18.
equals negative 10 square root of 3 minus x. You can divide by negative 10. I'm not. Normally I would, but the reason I'm not is because the numbers over here aren't divisible by 10. If they were, absolutely, I'd divide by negative 10. But as it is, I'm just going to leave it like it is. Okay? I am going to square both sides again to get rid of the square over here. So, this will be, again, shortcut, right? What's 2x times 2x? 4x squared. Negative 18 times negative 18. I'm going to need your help on that one. It's like 3 something. What is it? 324. And then in the middle, 2x times negative 18 would be negative 36x times 2 of them would be negative 72x in the middle.
Wait, how did you get the middle?
I multiplied 2x times negative 18. That's negative 36x. And I know I'm going to have 2 of them. Okay? Again, don't do the shortcut if you don't want to write the shortcut. Write it down twice and FOIL. Everybody got me? Okay? Don't let the shortcut be the reason you missed it because you were trying to do it different than you always have. All right? Over here on the right, what's negative 10 squared? 100 times 3 minus x squared the square root of it would be just 3 minus x. Okay. It's big and ugly, but we're trekking along. I told y'all this one was a booger. Distribute your 100. You get 300 minus 100x. 300 is a good movie, by the way. All right. Is it? 300 is a movie. It may be D100 is a movie too, but 300 is a movie about the Spartans. It's got Jared Butler in it. Got P.S. I love you. You're a chick, so you've probably seen it. Yes. Okay. The game of snaps. I know it. Okay. I need it. It's a quadratic, so what do I need it equal to? 0. So I'm going to subtract 300 over and add 100x over to the other side. And that at least gets my numbers to be a little smaller. So 4x squared plus 100 minus 72. What is that? 28x plus 24 equals 0. What can I divide everything by? 4. That makes things way easier. X squared plus 7x plus 6 equals 0. And now I can factor. Thank goodness. What? 6 and 1. Two numbers that multiply to be 6 and add up to 7 are 6 and 1. So for my final answer, x equals -6 and x equals -1. Woo. You do need to plug them in to check them. I've already done so because I looked at the book and they said it works. So
Why does one
both of them
problem
work.
have so many steps?
After 14 lines.
I can do a quadratic.
It's just one has so many steps. It's not like they all have like that.
Some of
You should
them-
see some of our calculus problems.
I'm not taking
You better.
I'm not taking no care.
So you're not gonna have a math
Well,
anymore?
I may.
You need at least take a math.
What if I qualify?
Caitlin, did you have a question? You raised your hand. You sure? Okay. All right.
Wait.
I am. I was going to scroll it up in case anybody missed one of the 7,362 steps. It's to write that problem. Okay, maybe I exaggerated a little bit, but there was a lot of steps.
This seems about right. The quadratic formula is b squared minus 4ac.
Under the radical, yes. It's negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yes.
What was the original problem?
I don't know. That,
Good lord.
the blue part.
Okay.
See how I color
Why is there
coordinated?
so many steps? I don't understand.
Look. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only 8 steps. I mean, come on. Only 8.
My bad. No, better than 10.
Last one, better than 10. Not as good as 7, but you know. Last one. Maybe. There we go. Alright. Same type, but it's what kind? Inequality. So they're a little different. Okay, but
Of course they are.
basically you do the same thing. Is my square root by itself? Yes, that's a blessing. I'm just going to square both sides. So I'll get 4x plus 5 is less than or equal to 100. And I'm 2 steps away now. So subtract 5. 4x is less than or equal to 95. Divide by 4. X is less than or equal to 95 fourths.
That's it.
Almost.
So we have like 95% of our test codes.
So,
Please.
here's the little difference. Had that been a greater than sign, I would be done. Okay? But like we talked about earlier, what can you not have under that square root? Negative. So, if you think about it, x can be less than negative or equal to 95 over 4. I can think of some really, really big negative numbers that are less than 95 over 4 that won't work. Okay? So, again, you just have to pay attention is it possible for me to get a negative number if I pick some things that are less than whatever number I have? Okay, and it is. So we have to figure out where's my stopping point. So all you do, ask yourself, what's the lowest number that can be under there and it still be okay? 0. I can take the square root of 0, right? So I just need to figure out what's 4x plus 5, and it needs to be greater than or equal to 0. In other words, you're saying it needs to be a positive number, okay? Or 0, okay? We call those non-negative numbers, okay? So 4x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 0. You work this little problem out. You don't have to do this every time, just when it's possible to get negatives, okay? So I work it out. My lowest possible number is negative 5/4. My highest possible number is 95/4.
So it can
And you write them together as negative 5/4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 95 over 4. Yeah, you leave it in fraction. Make sure you reduce your fraction, okay? But absolutely, you can leave it in a fraction. Or I'll take the decimal too. All right?
Do it less times.
Oh, no.
It's gotta be less than 100.
I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time, and as always, stay above that line.